Good morning, Nigeria, and welcome to Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital in Abuja. My name is Ayuela, and thank God it's Friday. We are excited that you are joining us on this day to have these discussions on the program. Of course, the Daybreak brings you updates on recent happenings around the country and all the issues of national concern, bring you analysis and perspectives. Of course, and I'm not alone today, too.
Good morning and welcome to Daybreak on Trust TV. I'm Dashan Husseina Usman. Now, something about Friday comes with a kind of excitement.
Yes.
What is it about Friday?
Well, you know, it's the last, technically, it's the last day of the week.
Working week.
Yeah, working week for those who are workers. So it gives you that opportunity to, you know,
unwind,
be a bit laid back, you know, and just relax, you know, for the weekend and all of that, because you're going to bed thinking, oh, tomorrow is Saturday, so I don't have to worry about waking up early.
The idea itself gives you that, you know, refreshing feeling.
Exactly. So it's more psychological, I believe. Yeah, because, I mean, for some of us, what difference does it make? Really?
When we still work weekends and all.
The TV is always on, whether weekend, whether Christmas, whether Salah, whether whatever celebration it is.
But even at that, there's still the excitement.
Yes, like I said, it's more psychological. For some of us, we just have to feel the weekend in our head.
And go with the flow, just like everyone.
Yeah, so great one. Today we'll be taking a look at a lot of discussions talking about media regulation in Nigeria, and we'll be joined by officials of the NBC to talk about, you know, some of the recent controversies around the operations of the NBC, and of course we'll be talking a bit of politics as well, and so quite a number of issues to look at. We'll also be looking at the dailies on Daybreak, as always, you know, to bring you perspectives on all the front stories on the front pages. Okay,
but first of all, the news highlights. The FCT Police Command on Thursday has announced restriction of movement from 12 midnight of Friday, 11th February to 4 p.m. on Saturday, 12th February in Abuja towards ensuring security during the conduct of the area council elections in the Federal Capital Territory. A statement by Police Public Relations Officer, FCT Command, DSP Josephine Ade, said the restriction exempts students who are already scheduled to write their WAEC examination nationwide, as well as other essential workers. He warned that those who did not fall within any of the categories and are found wanting will be made to face the wrath of the law.
Wife of the President, Aisha Buhari, has demanded justice in the murder case of 5-year-old Hanifa Abubakar, who was recently kidnapped and killed by Abdul Malik Tanko, the proprietor of the school she attended. The First Lady made the request Wednesday during her visit to commiserate with the family of late Hanifa in Kano State. Speaking with journalists at Kano Government House, Mrs. Buhari insisted that appropriate punishment must be meted out to the culprits to serve as a deterrent to other criminal-minded people.
Okay. Now let's delve into a little bit of sports. Nigeria has moved up 4 places to 32nd in the latest FIFA ranking released by the World Football Governing Body on Thursday. Despite early exit from Africa Cup of Nations, Super Eagles put up a good display during the group stages, collecting all available 9 points and pushed Tunisia all the way before crashing out in the round of 16. The team, currently led by Austin Eguavoen, were seeded against Ghana during the draw for the final World Cup playoffs in Africa as a result of being among the best 5 teams on the continent. AFCON winners, Senegal remains the best team, followed by Morocco, Nigeria, Egypt, Tunisia, Cameroon, Algeria, Mali, and the Ivory Coast, in that order to make up the top 10 best teams on the continent. Globally, Belgium retains the #1 spot and are followed by Brazil, France, Argentina, England, Italy, Spain, Portugal, Denmark, and Netherlands. And with that, we wrap up our news highlights for today. So while we move on, let's take a look at historical events that happened today.
Well, there you have it. Today in history, as always, we'll say, well, I mean, those who do not know history are doomed to repeat it, you know, and that's why we took it upon ourselves to do this every episode of the Daybreak, just to bring you up to speed with, you know, significant events in our history and those that we need to remember and always bear in mind. Now, today is International Day of Women and Girls in Science, and that for me stands out because it's very important that we have this conversation, especially in this part of the world, the northern Nigeria. We need to see more women talking about girl-child education. We need to see more girls educated, and not just educated, but, you know, in the areas of, you know, science, because it's very important that we have, you know, women in that sphere, because it seems to be like a patriarchal kind of
it's like a male-dominated
system. You know?
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, today is actually, as usual, to create awareness and to make women and girls know that, you know, there are women in science actually, you know, taking giant strides, and, you know, anyone can do it, you know, and also recognizing the role of women and girls in science, not only as beneficiaries, but also as agents of change.
So that's very critical, you know, for us on this program. We need to see more of that. We need to see authorities, we need to see politicians, we need to see government take that more seriously. Girl-child education is key to changing the narrative of our society, especially here in this part of the world. All right. Now, other significant events. Back in 1929, the Vatican becomes a sovereign nation. And of course, in 2014, 77 people were killed after a military transport plane crashes in Algeria on this very day. So that's a sad one. And on that note, we end you know, that segment. We'll take a look at the dailies on Daybreak, and we have Nuruddin Abdullah, editor of 21st Century Chronicle, with us in the studio to share with us, you know, some of the perspectives on the stories on the front pages shortly after the breather.
But in a situation where you find that they look at the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that.
All right, thank you for staying. Let's begin with Daily Trust newspaper this morning, and the lead story there, quite an interesting one, more of a business story. CBN ends forex sales to banks. The writer says targets $200 billion from non-oil export proceeds. And you also have, you know, Naira for dollar policy rakes in $100 million weekly. You also see new move will make banks, entrepreneurs, responsive experts. So look forward to the implication of that. If you pick a copy of the paper on page 5, you find all the details. And then at the top, you know, above the lead story, APC Reconciliation Committee fails to submit report 15 days to convention. And then you see bandits kill Muazzin calling prayer in Zamfara. And then you see insurgency. Yobe needs over 25 billion naira to revitalize education. That's according to Governor Mimola Buni. And then below the pictorial there, what you see is the story that talks about adulterated fuel. Buhari wants suppliers held accountable. And the pictorial actually shows you Chairman, Independent National Electoral Commission, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, rather, is inspecting the distribution of sensitive materials for the FCT Area Council elections, which is slated for Saturday, tomorrow. Also, at the very bottom, the other stories there, court dissolves marriage as wife claims hubby divorced her via phone. Wow. How so simplistic, you know. Other stories there, 2023 South not against North, Afenifere replies Northern elders. You see robbers attack bullion van, kill 2 cops and 2 civilians in Ibadan. These are The story is on the front page of Daily Trust newspapers.
All right, we'll move on to Nigerian Tribune newspaper next. And we have the lead story that says suppliers of adulterated fuel must face the law. This is attributed to the President, Buhari. And some writers here that say NNPC names defaulting importers. IPMAN directs members to compile inventory of affected customers. Reps call for probe of NNPC, Sun, others. Fuel scarcity, NATO threatens to withdraw services. And details of that particular story can be found on page 6 and 7. I can't wait to see what compensation, they get to give the affected customers. All right, at the top there, we have a power must shift to the south in 2023. Ethnic nationalities insist. And a few writers that say Afenifere backs Akeredolu say south not against the north. North will field candidate. Your threat can't walk. CNJ tells Akeredolu. CBN to stop sale of forex to banks in 2022 says Nigeria to earn $200 billion in forex repatriation from non-oil exports. If you come down right at the, you see a pictorial there, a pictorial of 2 policemen, 2 civilians killed as robbers attack bullion van in Ibadan. Beside them, we also have a story that says 18 Zamfara Assembly members vote for removal of deputy governor. We also have Boko Haram insurgency will end by 2023. That's attributed to Borno governor. Military gunships kill 37 bandits in Niger. 1 soldier dies in Kaduna. We also have don't interfere with Nigerian politics. Buhari wants diplomats. And then Kwara explains takeover of Shonga farm by Amcon. And details of that story can be found on page 25. These are some of the top stories from the Tribune, Nigerian Tribune.
All right, let's take a look at the Nation newspaper. Here, the story is about toxic petrol firms, NNPC in row as Buhari orders sanctions. You'd also find at the top there, Boko Haram's end is near, says Zulum. And you find federal lawmakers angry over flight delays. And then other stories there, 18 Zamfara lawmakers vote for deputy governor sack. You'd see also NIA faults ex-AGF's claims on sacked acting DG. So these are some of the stories on the front page of the Nation this morning.
All right, so moving on to the Punch newspaper. The lead story has to do with the robbery that happened in Oyo State. Oyo bullion van robbers, Enugu gunmen kill 5 policemen, others. And writers that say Ibadan motorcyclist killed, commuters shot, hoodlums caught away cash, and motorists flee. 3 policemen manning Enugu checkpoint killed, POS man shot, and a woman abducted. That's really a sad one. And we also have right above it, beside the nameplate that says NNPC may spend 201 billion naira to clean 170.25 million liters of dirty fuel. Okay, we also have petrol transporters gradually halt operations over low freight rates. Details of that on page 22. Rep squeeze finance ministry for 17 billion naira unapproved spending. Details of that story on page 23. An electoral bill, Assembly carpets Malami over self-interest comment. And you can find details of that story on page 4. If you come down to the bottom, there's a story here that says NDLEA seizes 2 billion naira drug in containers from India at Lagos port. Details of that story on page 5. These are some of the stories on the front page of the Punch newspaper.
All right, The Guardian is next, and here we have the lead story that talks about importers of dirty fuel must be held accountable, Buhari vows. It has the riders that says, stop your comedy of anger. buck passing, PDP replies Buhari. Reps probes NNPC, SON, others over sale of bad fuel. You'd see also Mrs. Enadep deny involvement in adulterated fuel supply. NATO threatens strike, insists on rate review. So below the nameplate there, you'd see also tension in Ibadan as robbers attack bullion vans, kill police officers and student. Also, don't meddle in 2023 election, Buhari tells diplomat. Why APC, PDP may end up with misfits as presidential aspirants. CBN to end FX supply to banks, targets $200 billion from non-oil exports. And then the picture shows you Burkina Faso, well, basically the sports. I believe that has to do with the recently held African Cup of Nations. And these are basically the major stories on the front page of the Guardian newspaper.
All right, and finally on Business Day, we'll just take the lead story that has to do with NNPC marketers trading blames over dirty petrol. And the writer says, greed, profiteering fingered. And also what Abuja Council election means for APC and PDP. These are some of the stories that we will be discussing today on the newspaper review.
All right, now let's get perspectives on some of these stories. We have Nuruddin Abdallah, editor 21st Century Chronicle, in the studio to give us perspectives. Good morning. Welcome to Daybreak.
Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
Well, quite a lot of interesting stories, really. If you take a look at, say, for instance, the Daily Trust newspaper leads with the story that talks about CBN's plan to end forex sale for banks. I mean, what are the likely implications of this? Experts seem to be welcoming this idea.
Yes, like most of the experts said since the CBN announced this yesterday, it's a very good development if it is diligently implemented, because making a policy is one thing and ensuring that it is implemented fully is another. And like what many of the experts said, CBN has been funding farmers in the last 6 years. If we take the anchor borrowers, for instance, the CBN has expended more than 900 billion on 21 commodities in the last 6 years. You have rice, you have palm, you have sesame, you have cocoa, you have maize, and what have you. But that is at the production level, not the value chain level. So the policy unveiled by this CBN yesterday entails stopping banks and giving forex to banks, so that banks will now generate their own forex by funding local entrepreneurs and so on. Now, what CBN is simply saying is this: in the next 10 years, for instance, if Mr. Ayuba wants to establish, let's say, a cashew processing company, already farmers are getting money to cultivate cashew. When you are establishing a factory that will process this cashew for export, then the banks need to give you forex. You will create jobs and you will generate revenue when exporting. The governor mentioned, we export so much commodities. Take cocoa, for instance. Cocoa and chocolate is about $130 billion in business across the world. Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, and Ghana produce more than 70% of the raw materials. Yes, how much is it compared to how much do you buy chocolate in the supermarkets and what have you? We don't add value to it. So Nigeria is losing, the farmers are losing. But most of the raw material we export are raw materials. So we get less value for it. What this scheme means is now, if you want to establish a factory, you can get, there is a sort of an intervention at 5% from the CBN instead of the 9%. And this will continue in the last 10 years. So now, instead of banks now, we are housing this forex. People are using the forex just for leisure, you know, for medical tourism, for education. Now they want it for real investment that will add value to what we produce. When exporting, you know, we get value for it.
And I mean, in terms of, you know, promoting export, you know, it appears that this is something that will, you know, promote exporting to other countries.
Yeah, sure. We, like, take cocoa for instance. We export the raw cocoa. Why can't you turn it into chocolates, beverages, and what have you? Take cassava for instance. You buy, how much is a bottle of starch now? Almost 2,000 plus.
Are we likely to see, you know, a decrease in the cost of the dollar as a result of this?
Yes, because you will generate it yourself. And Mikey, when you have this, there will be now inflow, foreign direct investment. Take Kaduna for instance now. Olam is there. Some foreigners brought their money and they set up a milk industry. They rear the cows. You understand? They do the milk, they package it. They sell locally and they export. There is a tomato paste industry as well. Go there during the peak of the harvest. The tomato is, the basket where the tomato is put has more value than the content. A month later, there will be different because the farmers don't have the capacity to preserve. But now they are converting it into a pest instead of importing because what we do now is most of the companies now, Ericsson and whatever, you know, they import the consolidated paste and they can it here. But now we'll do it here and sell it locally as well as export and earn the dollar.
And by that, I mean, creating jobs in the process.
That is it.
Well, is this part of CBN's plan to drive the $200 billion non-oil revenue?
I think that is it, because there are four sources of forex, you know. Oil, the crude we sell, the non-oil export, foreign direct investment, and the diaspora remittances. They have, based on what the governor said, you know, they have now extended the naira for dollar policy ad infinitum. And he said that in less than 1 year, in less than a month, they got about $100 million. Whatever dollar, if for instance, Mr. Ayuba lives or works in the NRS or whatever, if you wrote your dollar back home through the official channel, you get 5 naira per dollar addition. So it works. You understand? So we believe that what we are just, our concern now is, you know, we are in an election year. Policy consistency. If they will diligently pursue this, and we believe that with the achievements so far recorded in terms of the other like of it, take the ABP for instance, the Anchor borrowers, something, you know. Now you are now dealing with the processing aspect. You understand? Farmers will now have more value for what they produce. We are not going to repeat what we did recently, you know, in Benue with Nigeria celebrated exporting raw yams to the United States. It was a disaster. You should export starch for broken industry, for pharmaceutical industries and what have you, but not a raw yam You understand?
Well, we'll continue to keep tab on this to see how it's. I mean, it's the issue has always been about implementation of policies.
Yeah.
We have beautiful, ideas, and policies, but when it comes to implementation, sometimes you find that there's some kind of stall there. But we'll continue to keep tabs on this. Other stories on the front page of Daily Trust. The APC Reconciliation Committee is, reported to have failed to submit its report 15 days to the convention, which implies that, this 26th of February date, for the convention, is it feasible in your opinion?
Yes, notwithstanding the report as far as the convention is concerned is not that significant, because before the governors meeting where this convention that was agreed upon, the Abdullahi Adamu committee wanted an extension. If you give the committee extension up to December, they will not solve the problem in the APC. That's the reality. And I believe that the Buni-led Convention and Planning Committee knows this clearly. APC is a ruling party. They have been there for in the last 7 years. The principal, the dramatic person, Buhari, is leaving by next year. He is the one that's the force that holds the party together. So now there are all manner of interest, are scrambling to see what they can get before the big masquerade exit the stage. So if you give Abdullahi Adamu committee up to December, they will not be able to resolve all the problems. How can you resolve the problem in Kwara? How can you resolve the problem in Ocean? Even Kano.
Do you think the internal wrangling in the APC, well, nationally, is actually responsible for what's happening in the states?
Not if you look something like that. Unfortunately, APC, they have this tendency of allowing a small problem to fester and to snowball into something big. The issue of Kano should have been resolved at the beginning. Yeah, there is squabbles here and there before the congresses, the local government congresses. If, for instance, now the party leader is the president, if he invites all the rival groups, round table, whatever decision reached, it will be binding. But he sees it coming. He feels aloof. He believes that they should do whatever they do. And until the thing reaches a certain stage, same thing. Let's take Oshim, for instance. The very day the Oyetola faction chairman was inaugurated in Abuja, the party, the campaign headquarters of the Minister of Interior was attacked and vandalized. Look at what is happening in Kwara. The party structure now, based on what happened last week, has been handed over to Governor Abdul Razak. Lai Mohammed, Minister of Information and Communication, is a great air minister. He has been in this system for a very long time. The governor is a new entrant. So that is the problem. Go to Ogun. What of Gombe? So the problem with Buhari or the APC is they look at a small problem, they will believe, they will claim ignorance that it doesn't happen. They will feign ignorance. Until the thing snowballs, look at what is happening in Kano. The matter should have been resolved long ago. All can do that. I don't even know to even belabor this. What happened in Zamfara?
All right, now let's take a look at other stories. One other story that got my attention and got me curious is the one about court dissolving, a marriage based on the fact that the wife claims that her husband decided to divorce her via phone. I mean, when you hear that, what's the first thing that comes to mind about where we place or the value we place on, marriages these days?
It's unfortunate, actually. No, from the Islamic point of view, I'm not an Islamic scholar, but you know there are so many interpretations. That yes, you can call your wife on phone and say that you have divorced her. But what we know is this. And this interpretation, this version, interpretation, you know, is leading to the horrible divorce we have, particularly in the northern part of the country, particularly among a particular ethnic group where I come from, the Hausas. But principally, in that interpretation, many people believe is wrong. When you want to get married, your representative must meet the representative of the bride to be. The minimum of two, call it wali. That is when the agreement will be made. And that is where the marriage will take place. So, some scholars are saying that even in the case of divorce, this same route must be followed. You have to bring your wali. You bring your wali. Say, okay, uncle or daddy, please, I want you to come. I want to divorce my wife. And her wali will come too. So, you know, they make it, there is a hadith saying that divorce is valid religiously, but God is angry with whoever does it, because so many things are involved. And look at the age of the woman. You marry someone at the age of 18, 20, 10 years, 15 years later, you just call her on phone and say that you're divorced her without any alimony. Look at that.
It sounds so simple, like it's so easy, like there are no implications. I mean,
yes, because we are selfish. That woman, maybe even though she's educated, you know, you have locked her in the house, manufacture kit for you. Only after 15, 20 years, you will just say Bana Santa. And it stands. And without any financial implication. You have wasted her time, disfigure her, and send her away. To where?
Could it be why some are, you know, advocating for, you know, alongside the religious wedding, maybe there should be some court weddings as well, so that the woman is protected in instances like this? You
know, we allow culture to, and you know, because all the people that take decisions are men. So women are grossly underrepresented. Go and see what is happening in the Arab nations, Arab countries. Saudi Arabia, for instance, you can't do that in Saudi Arabia, because they're talking about Islam. You can't do that in Egypt. You can't do that in Tunisia. You can't do that in Iran. But because here, in the last couple of months, what is the trend in social media, particularly from the northwest and northeastern part of the country? Cancel lepe. Lepe are those boxes, broadcasts that you do on the eve of wedding. But the men are so lazy, and some of the scholars are even advocating for that it is because of lepe that some youngsters don't want to get married. But they are advocating for the cancellation of lepe without advocating for the cancellation of kaindaki. Where I come from, if you are getting married, if you have a daughter that you want to give out, it's a huge responsibility. You have to buy the beds, the beddings. You have to buy the seat. You have to furnish the sitting rooms. You have to furnish the kitchen. Send even food. And all this means money. But the few boxes that the guy will bring, now they're saying that it should be cancelled. Whereas they are not advocating for the cancellation of the kaindaki.
In any case, I thought that the whole rationale behind it is that if by chance, if any day comes and the man says, look, I'm no longer interested in this marriage, because of all the things that the woman brought, she's entitled to take in all of her belongings. And even though, like in this case, in the case of this story, the woman is going to be returning the bride price, paid by the man. But again, can we totally really separate these things
Where is
after
alimony?
spending years?
No, in the case of after, it has to do with who is what are his she can't return his bride price if she's the one initiating this. The woman is the loser. Maybe after 15 years of marriage or 20 years with 10 kids, all her figure has changed dramatically. Now you are sending her out to weigh.
Can she recover from that
the
one?
The thing is, right, a lot of us actually seem to believe that, you know, once the bride returns the bride price, it is automatically an annulment of the wedding or of the marriage.
The court is actually saying that the wife should return the bride price.
Why? After how many years? Religiously, you know, let me just say from the Islamic point of view, I'm not, even though I'm not a cleric, if for instance that there is a wedding and the woman just feel that, yeah, she is no longer interested in this wedding, in the marriage, for instance, for no germane reason. There are germane reasons where divorce becomes inevitable, you understand? But if those reasons are not there, she just psychologically feel that she doesn't like the wedding for some reason, then it is that she will return
the bride price.
the bride price. Or some will even say, okay, you are a graduate, you have a master's, you are a working woman, okay, give him money that he can marry someone like you. You understand? It is in that case, but not after children, you cohabit with her, you consummate the marriage. And
many years down the
so
line.
if you go to the even local...
Yes, the cases of divorce appears to be becoming more rampant. Are you worried about this trend, and what are the things that young people should know before even getting married?
The problem is becoming rampant, actually. Marriage today, a week, 2 weeks later, divorce. Go to Kano, for instance. Go to the major northern cities. Because we look at marriage from a very, very different perspective. Just from that, how can I put it, the lost perspective. Not with the responsibility as well. That's why we marry as many as possible. Again, when we are getting married, unlike, for instance, some in churches, you go for even pre-wedding counseling. There is nothing like that in the far north. Understand? And the way we even look at marriage, you have 2 daughters or 3 daughters, for instance, your neighbor's daughter got married, so it becomes incumbent on you to get married by hook or by crook.
The pressure.
So the pressure is there. You understand?
Societal pressure.
Societal pressure, whether you have the right person or not.
Whether you
Again,
are ready for it or not.
It's cheap. I can sack my wife today. 2 days after, another one will come in. That's it. Unlike some other ethnic groups, like the Yorubas, for instance. What do I need? Is that levy that we are even trying to abolish. Just rent a room. I can only paint it. She'll come and furnish it. That is it. How much is the dowry they are talking about? Go to even the Anura, whatever. The highest you have is 100,000, 200,000. And the dowry is religiously is the gift to the wife. You make it 20,000. I even do 20,000. The sadak, the minimum of sadak is no more than 25,000. So in Abuja here, they are still doing wedding of with 25,000 naira dowry and the likes.
You actually have some traditions that, you know, even when you give the expected amount, for example, they call 10,010 naira, they collect the 10 naira to keep something and then return the 10,000 to you.
No, so, you know, in wrapping this up, you know, this whole conversation, I don't know how we got here, but I mean, this is quite interesting. Would you say that culture has helped, you know, helped us in, you know, keeping marriages and, you know, making us to value marriages more, or otherwise?
Otherwise, because we value marriages more, there won't be this skyrocketing indices of divorce, particularly from the northwestern part of the country. That is one. And secondly, like I said, the marriage is cheap. Thirdly, there is no consequence. Like this guy.
But some of the older generation, if you look at their marriages, it lasts, you know, for decades, and some of them are very comfortable, you know, with the way that, you know, and from what we heard, some of them didn't actually even make the choice of choosing their life partners. Some of them were, you know, marched together, you know, were just brought together by their parents and all of that, yet they stick together. So what is wrong with us?
Yes. Do you know why that happened? In those days, our mothers, our grandmothers were married even before.
At a very young age.
11, 12, 13 maximum. Now my daughter will get married after, when she gets to university. She has to get university education. So you can decide for someone at the age of 8, 9 in those days, with little exposure to Western education. You can't do that now with an undergrad or someone who has been in complete secondary school. So that's the difference.
So is that the price? Is that the price to pay now for?
Have changed, you know.
Yes.
People
so is that the price to pay now for more education, more exposure, and all of that?
The issue is simple now. In those days, they tolerated, most of them were forced marriages. But now with the level of education of women, girl child education, for instance, that thing is not possible. At age of 10, a girl will have choices. She'll be telling you, look at this Hanifa. You look at her footages. At age of 5, she was even saying she wanted to be she wanted to be this, she wanted to be this, she wanted to be this. You understand? So unfortunately now, we are trying to use 1960 approach to 2020 women. That is, which is not possible.
All right, just before we go, just to share your thoughts quickly in 1 minute on the Oyo Bullion van robbery in broad daylight.
That's not the first time. Recently in Delta, there was some incident. Even in Oyo in 2008, there was something is wrong somewhere. Yeah, even the last one, they did not succeed in taking away the money, but they gunned down security and even passers-by. All these robberies take place because there are insiders. That was it.
Informants.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. We have to end the discussion here because of time. We appreciate your coming on Daybreak.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. We've been speaking with Nuruddin Abdallah, editor, 21st Century Chronicle, and he's been the one giving us his perspectives on the stories on our front pages. For now, we'll take a short break, and then when we come back, we'll begin to take a look at other discussions on the program. Please stay with us.
Coronavirus disease, COVID-19, is an infectious disease caused by SARS-CoV-2 virus. Most people who fall sick with COVID-19 will experience mild to moderate symptoms and recover without special treatment. However, some will become seriously ill and require medical attention. The virus can spread from an infected person's mouth or nose in small liquid particles when they cough, sneeze, speak, sing, or breathe. These particles range from larger respiratory droplets to smaller aerosols. You can be infected by breathing in the virus if you're near someone who has COVID-19, or by touching a contaminated surface and then touching your eyes, nose, or mouth. The virus spreads more easily indoors and in crowded settings. Maintain a safe distance from others at least 2 meters even if they don't appear to be sick. Wear a mask in public, especially indoors or when physical distancing is not possible. Clean your hands often. Use soap and water or an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Cover your nose and mouth with your bent elbow or a tissue when you cough or sneeze. Stay home if you feel unwell. Get vaccinated. Properly fitted masks can help prevent the spread of the virus from the person wearing the mask to others. Masks alone do not protect against COVID-19 and should be combined with physical distancing and hand hygiene. Protect yourself and others around you by knowing the facts and taking appropriate precautions. Follow advice provided by your local health authority. This message is brought to you by Trust TV.
All right, welcome back. You're still watching Daybreak on Trust TV. Moving on to our first discussion. In 2019, like we said, we have a representative of the National Broadcasting Commission here with us. So we'll just start with a brief, introduction. In 2019, Nigeria's National Broadcasting Commission, in pursuant to its powers under Section 2, subsection H of the National Broadcasting Commission, published the 6th edition of the Nigerian Broadcasting Code. Now, the NBC Code, which represents the minimum standard of broadcasting in Nigeria, was published to provide regulations for broadcasters and to also ensure that broadcasting plays a pivotal role in the social, cultural, technological, economic, and political lives of Nigerians. In an apparent bid to control every form of broadcast of Nigerian content and also ensure competition in the Nigerian broadcasting industry, certain provisions of the NBC Code have been raised issues, especially as it relates to its legality, and the practicability of the enforcement. Now, to help us understand this better, we have in the studio this morning the Director, Broadcast Policy and Research, Stella Erunse. You're welcome to Daybreak this morning.
Thank you very much.
All right, so now before, let's just start with this question. Why is media regulation important?
Thank you. Media regulation simply means being authorized to operate. That is, a media organization needs to be authorized by the government before going into operation. It is important because media is crucial to every sector of a nation. When you leave the media unregulated, we are simply saying anyone can say anything, anyone can do anything, not minding the effect of that on the society. And in every nation, national security and public interest are never toyed with. So in order for the sanity of the airwaves, you find out that most countries regulate the media.
All right, now, where do we draw the line between media regulation and suppressing press freedom? Because it's a major concern. A lot of people have said that this whole idea of having a body like the NBC is to kind of stifle the press. And the press in this instance has a responsibility of holding government accountable based on the constitutional role that it's meant to play. So how do we strike that balance?
Okay. There's a difference between media regulation and suppressing or censorship of the media. When you're talking about censorship, we are simply taking away the freedom of expression from individuals. You are saying nobody should say anything. See something, but don't say anything at all. But regulation is about setting standards and ensuring that in as much as you need to hold the government accountable, in as much as you need to inform the public, entertain the public and educate the public, you do it according to standards. You do it in a way that will add up to the nation, to nation building, instead of, crashing the nation. We have examples in other places what media, the atrocities that resulted from carelessness on the part of the media. So that's just the essence of media regulation.
Okay, so in the process of doing that, there are stakeholders who are raising concern about certain concepts, that have been embedded in, say, the 6th edition of the NBC Code, where it's like embarrassing the government. If you look at, the interpretation of that, a lot of people have said, well, it's not well defined. If you look at, concepts such as, fairness, to government and all of that, it's kind of ambiguous in some cases, and some people feel like it's subject to interpretation to whoever, depending on whichever side you stand from. So, how do you reconcile this?
Okay, what happens is that people, when they are looking at the NBC Code, most of the time they tend to take what suits them from, without looking at it holistically. That particular section did not limit it to only the government, even individuals. So what it's simply saying is that whatever you are putting on the front burner and you think it should be consumed by the public, should be truthful, should be credible, it should be fair, and it should be balanced. That's the simple explanation of that. It wouldn't be nice for us to bring an individual or even the government, I mean, to the public to say things that are not accurate. Because whatever you are saying is not just limited to our nation. Look at some other nations. How many other nations do we see, you know, talking anyhow about their government or other individuals? When they are going to discuss issues, they ensure that they have facts and figures to back up what they are saying.
All right. Some people seem to think that the NBC restricts legitimate press coverage, all in the name of, you know, protecting national interest. What's your opinion on that?
Legitimate press coverage of issues such as
politics. It depends.
Maybe security issues.
Politics and all.
And then certain issues are considered of national interest.
Yes.
And again, back to the issue of ambiguity. Some are saying, how do you define national interest? What is national interest? Maybe we should start from there.
National interest is any issue that can impinge on the security of the nation. Anything that you will do that will incite people to crisis. Anything that you will do that will bring the nation on its knees. That is, as far as I'm concerned,
are we talking about national security
interest.
now or national interest?
You
because
cannot,
if you take, say, a subject like fuel subsidy today,
yes,
that's a conversation of national interest. Everyone is interested in knowing, you know, what's going on,
yes,
you know, with respect to that.
Yes.
So again, how do we put it in proper context when we are referring to these codes?
National interest. You're talking of national interest.
Yes.
Yes. Well,
and separate them, the national
from
interest,
national security. Look, I believe that issues of national interest, if they are not properly handled, they can deteriorate into issues of insecurity. For instance, the fuel issue you are talking about, we must give opportunity to those who are in charge of that sector to provide reasons for the queues, the fuel queues we are experiencing now. But in an instance where we do not do that as media practitioners, and we bring people who do not understand what is happening, and they just start giving issues based on their own imagination, and then they incite people against the government, against those in charge of that sector. It can result into issues of insecurity, issues of crisis in the country. All
right, let's take a look at other sections of the 6th edition of the NBC Code. The issue of exclusivity, you know, and monopoly in the industry is generating a lot of concern for some. Some are arguing that by inserting those provisions, you are taking away the rights of parties to, you know, have contract deals, you know, freely, you know, agreements and all of that. When you say a party should not, you know, have some kind of exclusive right to certain contents and all that. So how do you respond to that?
You know, the thing about media development is there's a dynamism that you see in it. When you study about some other advanced countries, you discover that there are rules that come to play at a certain time, and after a while, when it has operated and they find out that it has stabilized that particular sector, it is reviewed. So for this one about exclusivity, the reason why it was brought into the code is to ensure that there is the media players who are not as strong as the other giants that have the capital to get these programs at any time, they also are able to benefit. By the time they sublet these rights to them, they can air it to their own, in their own group, and still make something substantial from it. So I believe that this came to be to help the industry, generally, so that financially it is not just a few people that will be benefiting from the adverts that can come through these big programs, So okay. That's the essence of that.
All right. Well, quite interesting, really. But are you concerned about the implication of this on investments, like foreign investors, and the revenue that is generated in the media industry and all of that?
Of course, I don't believe that it has a negative impact that much, on foreign investors. Foreign investors, before this law, knew their partners, those they've been partnering with, and even with this, it will still not stop them.
Yeah, well, you are now, saying that they do not have some exclusive rights to certain kind of contents, and by the time, for instance, they do their calculation and weigh it all, and they see that, look, this law tends to, have an impact negatively on revenue or the projections that they are likely to have as far as their income is concerned. So okay. Maybe around that angle.
Like I said earlier, there's room for reviews. So what usually happens when a law comes into existence, there is what is called evaluation. You evaluate it. And that's why from time to time we have a code review. At least within 4 years, we review the code. So the essence is to evaluate the impact of the existing laws or regulations. If the impact is negative, when we are reviewing, the review of the code is done by the industry. So that will be an opportunity for industry players to come up with their reasons, the arguments why this law should be reviewed, and it is taken out, or reviewed to reflect the desires of the players.
Okay, now, would you say as a body that you operate freely and independently? And also, what protects the independence and autonomy of the NBC from either political or commercial interference?
Well, I say that as a body, we operate independently. We operate independently to the point that the law setting up the NBC permits the NBC to operate. What do I mean by that? For instance, in the grant of licenses, the law states that the Commission receives, processes applications for the grant of licenses, and then transmits such to the minister, who takes it to the president for his approval. So to that extent, If, as a commission, we just say you need a license, bring the application and give, then we will not be operating according to the law. But aside from that, the day-to-day running of the organization, the Director General is in charge.
All right, let's talk about online space. You know,
Okay.
that's also something that has generated some concern for, you know, the country generally, in terms of censorship, in terms of fake news, hate speech, and the likes. The Minister of Information has championed the, you know, mandating of online broadcasters to, you know, get licensed before they operate. There are reactions to that. Some say that, look, this is all an attempt because the online space is the only space where people can actually operate freely. And so others feel like this is an attempt to, you know, gag the media again. So that trust issue is always there. How do we deal with it?
The fact is that social media has become a thorn in the flesh, not only in Nigeria, but even in other countries. Countries are looking for what to do to sanitize even the social media because of the very terrible things resulting from content that are disseminated through the social media. So Nigeria is not alone in this, and it is not about censorship. It's still about regulation. Take, for instance, the recent one that we had of a teenager who killed a girlfriend of his. And there's a trending video on Instagram where the young men were simply saying, to be rich, kill your girlfriend for rituals. So there are a lot of horrible things happening. Some time ago, even a research that was done by the research department of Facebook came up with the fact that Facebook, through the content it's disseminating, has caused a lot of harm to teenagers. So every country is interested in regulating the social media.
So in doing that regulation, how much of involvement or collaboration or partnership do you have with stakeholders in the industry so that it doesn't appear like decisions are made and then forced down the throat of stakeholders? How much of, you know, interaction and engagement?
Okay, is in progress. Right now, what we are doing is to collaborate with all the stakeholders that have one thing or the other to do with the regulation of the social media. For instance, the NBC is in charge of content, regulating the content. For those who have the platform through which these messages are disseminated have to be involved. So a committee was set up initially after the suspension of Twitter, and it included NITDA, NCC, ONSA, and they looked at and agreed on some issues before the ban was lifted. But right now, as a commission, we are working with those same organizations. Just recently, we went to look at the first draft of regulations, went to consider it with NITDA, and then I think a representative of BORN. That's just the first stage. But as time goes on, before the regulations, come to play, definitely all the players will be involved.
Okay, now can you quickly tell us about the digital switchover, you know, the challenges that might likely, you know, come up, and also its promises?
Thank you very much. The digital switchover Of course, the first one, the pilot switchover, took place in Jos in 2016. The Abuja one was done also here. And subsequently, about 8 states have been switched on. About 7 states, including Abuja, making it 8, have been switched on. And we're working on some other states very soon. Some other states like Rivers, Yobe, and Gombe, then Uyo. I think they are the next to be switched on. So, well, it's not been as fast as we thought it was going to be. Okay. Because digital switchover requires a lot of money. You need to, the audience needs to be prepared, because they need a set-top box to be able to use the analog TV sets to receive digital signals. And you will agree that in Nigeria today, when anything that will give somebody an additional financial responsibility, they would want to resist it. But what the NBC is doing with the cooperation of under the leadership of the Minister of Information and Culture is to try to get the buy-in of state governments into the project, so that they will support the citizens to own their set-top boxes, to make it easy.
Are you optimistic that we'll be able to meet up with the timelines that we've set out, for this complete switchover, in terms of the schedules? Already we've seen that it has been, altered and all that. So are we going to meet up?
I will not sit here and say that we are going to meet up, or that we are not going to meet up. But I would say that as funds are available, the Commission is ready, and we'll try our best to meet up with the timelines. But if peradventure we are not able to meet up, digitization cannot go back. We have started. It's a journey that must be completed.
All right, well, thank you so much for coming on Daybreak this morning and sharing and giving us updates on, the recent happenings at the NBC. We appreciate your coming.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Well, we've been speaking with Stella Irunse. She's the Director of Broadcast Policy and Research at the National Broadcasting Commission. Thank you again for coming.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take a short breather, and then when we come back, we will be taking a look at other discussions on the program. Please stay with us.
Hello, and welcome to Trust TV News Updates.
I'm Zainab Bala. For more news, follow us across all our social media platforms.
The nightmare that most of these Pape residents have dreaded for many years is finally happening.
The place is a skeleton of itself, a place that was once busy with patients trooping in and out.
I'm standing right now. I'm standing on top of the Maloney Hill in the ancient city of Kefi.
Cooperation. I know communities where they are contributing to buy locally manufactured guns to defend themselves.
Being a Nigerian entrepreneur, and I am going to be taking you on a journey to show you the beautiful, the motivational and resilient nature of Nigerian entrepreneurs.
Behind me is the Arewa Textile Mill, established in 1963 and eventually closed down in 2004.
We are still going into some other hideouts to see if any apprehensions will be made tonight.
Let's travel down to Shekau, a community in Yobe State, to talk to Shekau's mother on what she thinks about this development.
Well, even to be a magistrate is a funny thing.
Yes. Have things changed? Is there more corruption now in the judiciary? What can we do about it?
Well, this is one of the internally displaced camps here in Gusau, the Zamfara State's capital.
Mustafa Gajibo is a school dropout from the University of Maiduguri. The 29-year-old owns a small factory that's into designing and building vehicles. Beside the young innovator's passion converting wheels to generating sets for the past 3 years, he says reducing economic hardships and fuel hikes inspired his work.
At this time in Nigeria, we have a lot of problem of fuel going up, and then in turn, prices of transportation will also go up. So much drought, most especially in this part of the world, Nigeria. We are facing so much drought, food security is being threatened. So we have to find solutions.
A fabricated vehicle, after charged for 35 minutes, can operate at a range of 150 kilometers. The factory has employed 12 staff and it has a production capacity of 20 vehicles monthly. He plans to push up his target to 4,500, but he needs support.
Very well, we need support from the government, most especially in terms of policy, in terms of funding. For example, now you can see there are so many parts of this vehicle that we import them from abroad. So we need a policy, a good policy, where we can have access to foreign exchange at the official rate, so as to bring down the cost of our production. Put even zero duty on any parts that you're going to import if you're going to use this part for production of electric vehicles. So with these little policies and also funding from the government and from the private sectors, we will surely upscale our production.
Governments across the world are also looking to reduce carbon emissions, air pollutants that contribute to health problems, and electric cars will play a big role in helping fuel economy and lower fuel costs. This innovation can also be an alternative for Nigeria to escape fuel crisis.
All right, thank you for staying with us. And if you're just joining, you're watching Daybreak, reaching you live from the nation's capital in Abuja. Now, amidst crisis and multiple factions, the All Progressives Congress, APC, last week inaugurated and presented certificates of return to the state party chairman elected in October last year. Now, it was revealed that parallel congresses were conducted in many states, particularly in states under its control, where governors, serving ministers, and federal lawmakers have been embroiled in leadership tussle for control for state chapters. Now, how prepared is the APC ahead of the February 26th convention? That will be the focus of our discussion and in this segment. We have APC chieftain in Adamawa State, Dr. Umar Mustafa Madawaki, who is joining us to share perspectives. Good morning and welcome to Daybreak.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, a lot of concerns have been raised about the APC convention on February 26th, looking at the recent conflict here and there. This morning we are seeing that the Reconciliation Committee is yet to submit its report, just about 2 weeks to the convention itself. Are you concerned about this? Is this going to have an implication?
Well, it depends on how you look at it. In politics, and especially when programs like the conventions are just by the corner, you expect all these rancors, you expect all these misgivings and so on and so forth. That is what makes politics tick. There may be skirmishes here and there that needed, to be checked and possibly put in place. And that's why the APC at the federal level or at the national level decided to set up this reconciliatory committee. They are going about doing their job. They've been given timelines of about 7 days, if I can remember properly. And I think they will reach out. Those who are recalcitrant or those who feel hurt one way or the other, if they had any negative intentions, by now they would have left the party. And I don't think there are, problems which are on the table right now are so big and deepened to the extent that they would want to create any crisis. The fact that the problems are there and they are also around means they want some form of reconciliation. You don't rule out that in politics. There is naturally going to be some rancors, there will be some misgivings, as well as alignments and realignments. And the ability of the leadership to get all these things corrected, makes politics tick. Some people blame the governors, others blame the president, and so on. The governors have the right because they are also politicians and they have interest. So they will go about trying to make sure that they are not left out.
Interest irrespective of the concerns of party faithfuls? Are you saying that regardless of whatever agitation that the members of the party have, as long as it's the governor's interest, then it's right?
The governors are also members of the party. And
yes, but the governor, as a governor, you're just one person.
I agree, but you are the leader. Governors normally will have interests, and their interests are born out of certain arrangements with his lieutenants. So you don't rule out that. Let us be realistic. They have interests, other members of the party also has interests, and that's why the Reconciliatory Committee is going around trying to see where they can pin either side to come to the table. So it's normal in politics. There's nothing, there's hardly any convention that came up without having this type of things. Maybe the magnitude might differ, but it's always there. So I have respect for the feelings of each and every politician, be he governor or an ordinary floor member. Now, but the thing is, at the leadership level, theirs is more, cogent in the sense that they have been in power, they will want to maintain power, and therefore their interests are divergent and strong.
Okay, you made the point that, about the interest of the governor. The governor represents a people, isn't it? The lawmakers represent people. So at the end of the day, when we talk about democracy, it's always about the people. So if a governor or a lawmaker is having an interest that does not represent, that does not necessarily, represent what the people want, should we let that, slide?
No, I think you've gone a little bit far. The interest I'm talking about, literally here, is that, when you are a governor, you must have been chosen by people, and under you, you also have certain lieutenants that are either appointed or chosen as well. Now, the concatenation of all these interests put together becomes the interest of the governor. So the governor is not selfishly pushing forward his own personal interest alone. Otherwise, he's going to have some problems.
Well, people think that, some think that mostly these interests are personal. Say, for instance, a governor has an anointed one he is, considering for a particular post. And the party members feel like, no, this is not the man that will do the job.
This is also doesn't inherent
merit it
in
and
human
all that.
Nature. The governor naturally would want, even if is serving his last term, he will naturally want to have someone he so much trusts to leave behind, or he would want certain person in certain position to help him achieve, in his next coming. So these are personal interests, I agree with you. But then the generality, in every situation there's always an exception. The generality of these interests are born out of the interests of the divergent leadership under the office of the governor. So you can technically say they are also the interests of the general public. But however, there are minute cases where the interests of the governor and his lieutenants might differ with the interests of the general public. In such a situation, the reconciliatory committee is there to fix it.
Has it been a successful committee so far? They said they needed more time. The other time we heard from them, and it doesn't look like that time is given to them. So
they don't even have that time. You are right.
How do they absorb all the issues?
Because they are experienced, they are people of proven integrity. I give you an example. The reconciliatory committee for Kano is headed by an elderly person, Senator Abba Ali. And I can tell you, if not because of the vast nature of Kano, 44 local governments, they have to see all the chairmen, the local government chairman, they have to see all the stakeholders in all the local governments and so on and so forth, before they finally draw conclusions. Now, this requires time, but they will work it out. They will find a way to do it. I'm telling you that, and you will see it coming to pass. So these, as far as I am concerned, these are normal normalities of politics. It will happen, and they will always find a solution to it.
Okay, now let's go back to Adamawa State. Now, a while back, there are reports that 7,000 members of the APC and the SDP, defected to the PDP. How did that affect the APC in the state?
That is, if it is true. The question is, I am from Adamawa State. I have not seen even 700 people defecting. These are, the governor has not performed. The governor has done absolutely nothing. He has only, belittled the state, bedeviled it with loans, no infrastructure, nothing. People are suffering, So I think he's looking for a way
but if
up
you say,
himself.
If you say he has done nothing, the governor is one man that has earned the nickname ATM. And that's for a particular reason, as to the welfare of workers in the state is not something that he toyed with. And again,
that was in the past.
We've seen certain constructions.
He had a time. He was an acting governor for 3 months when Murtala Nyako was ousted. Now, within that period of time, when he came, he found it's about salaries. He found the salaries of the 3 months intact. There was only a problem between the governor, then Murtala Nyako, and the labor. So he said, unless this problem is solved, he's not going to pay salaries. But he did not misappropriate the salaries. They are there. So when he came and found it, in order to institutionalize himself, he paid those salaries. So people generally assumed that this is a savior. This is a man who would come and see to the problems of the common man. Imagine when you're not paying salaries for 3 months, and suddenly someone comes and pays you a salary for 3 months. So you will have some feelings.
So he did that at the time. Has that changed? Has that trend changed?
It has.
How has it changed?
It has. People are not paid pensions. People are not paid leave allowances. People are not promoted. I mean, there's nothing. Talk to any civil servant in Adamawa State. They are all filled up with hatred. Not even, contentions. Hatred. I mean, so when politicking is just by the corner, they create circumstances that will, at the end of the day, wrap up some support for them. And it is not working. So he goes about telling lies, telling people that he's, getting decampees. From where? Where are these 7,000 decampees coming from? Why was it not publicized? Can he prove that 7 people came? Even if he's, bringing together PDP members and calling them decampees from APC, people will see. People will notice some of them as being members of PDP. So it never happened. It was just an imaginary thought in his mind, and he wanted that to happen so that people will see.
Well, we've seen a lot of constructions on there. you know, the governor, the current governor in the state. Road constructions, you know, we have this, you know, urban renewal and beautification projects that has been embarked upon, and quite a number of them. You do not consider that as achievements?
Well, they are misplaced priorities. You do not, in this era, 21st century, people are suffering. You know, their benefits are not being paid. We have over 20,000 retirees. Put yourself in that position. You work for 35 years and your benefits are not paid. And someone comes to build a bridge in the middle of the city where a bridge is not needed. How many vehicles do we have in Adamawa State to warrant, you know, an overhead bridge? There's hardly any hold up anywhere in Adamawa State. Hardly. And he built the bridge. And the worst part of it, he did that with loans.
But those are critical infrastructures.
There's nothing critical about that.
Perhaps he's, you know, foreseeing the future, and perhaps Adamawa State is likely to be a hub.
No. How do you walk towards the future when you are leaving behind those who are supposed to help you achieve the future? Their benefits are not being paid. Nothing is on the ground for people to benefit from. How many of his staff? Adamawa is the only state in this country where commissioners will have to contribute money at the end of the month among themselves in order to have enough for the purchase of a land or a vehicle or something. And here he is, a multi-billionaire, amassing wealth. So the people of Adamawa are determined this time around to oust him. We are going to get him out of the government house and replace him with good leadership.
Is that possible with somebody that you're putting
Put it
out?
down.
Abdulrazak Namdas has been, you know, contesting, rather campaigning sort of, you know, for the presidential, for the governorship, you know, seat of Adamawa State. Does he stand a chance?
Every politician has an ambition. Every politician stands a chance. But the people determine who becomes the governor. So I am a gubernatorial aspirant. Namdas is, Nuhu Ribadu is, Aisha Binani is, and so on and so forth. We have a lot of them. Now, all have the right to aspire. But at the end of the day, only one person is destined to be the governor. I am not particular about contestants. I am particular about the government of Adamawa State. I'm particular about the seat where an non-entity is sitting. Someone who doesn't feel.
But that's way too far if you say non-entity.
That's true. It is the truth.
But
you see,
I mean,
I may be a little bit insultive. It is born out of the frustration that we're going through. We don't allow people to come and dictate to us, you know, some archaic and outdated policies. In the 21st century, we are supposed to be more united. We are supposed to forge ahead.
All right. Now
in the Committee of Nations, I'm coming.
Now talking.
Why would someone at this era, in the 21st century, come to a state and try to divide people along religious lines, along ethnic lines? Meanwhile, it is not actually, you know, that the people are divided. Adamawa has always been a heterogeneous state. Now, why would you, instead of uniting people, divide them just because of your own bloody selfishness?
Now, talking about this unity, I mean, charity begins from home, isn't it? If you talk about unity, the APC in the state, is it united?
I have not seen any rancor. I have not seen anyone bolting out to say, I want to leave the party for someone else. You see, politics is different from any other system you can think of. It is a concatenation of people with divergent ideas, people with different thoughts, people with different aspirations. When they come together, it will require time for them to blend and face a single ideology. Now, in the process, those who sit behind and watch will naturally assume water is boiling in that pot. Because I would want my ideas, you know, to vie supreme. You would want the same thing. She would want the same thing. But at the end of the day, we know we are operating within a timeline. And that timeline has to be checked.
Okay.
So in the process, we will come together at the end of the day in order to forge ahead.
Well, I understand that things can get a bit heated, you know, sometimes when we talk about causes that we believe. But again, we must advise caution here, in terms of our choice of words and all of that. You talk about the, PDP government in Adamawa State as though it's a government that hasn't even achieved anything, in totality. Do you have proof, to some of the allegations that you are making here?
Well, first and foremost, before I answer that, you advise on caution in terms of choice of words. I have withdrawn my statement, that the governor is a non-entity. I think, by and large, it can be interpreted to mean a personal, attack. It is not unconnected with the level of frustration that we are going through. One will assume if you want to beautify a city, nobody is saying beautification of a city is wrong. Yeah, but not at the expense of certain norms, certain needs that affects the common man. Our educational system is one of the worst in the country. Can you imagine a secondary school that has no laboratory, yet training scientists? Can you imagine a secondary school that has no dormitories? Students, sleep in the open. Hospitals that have no drugs. No, Ganye is a local government. This I have seen. It's an established local government, well known, with lots of big people. It has ushered a lot of big people into the society. The general hospital in Ganye has just one medical doctor. One medical doctor.
And we can prove this.
I have even written an article on that. Now, these are some of the frustrations I'm talking about. So when you discuss, with these frustrations at the back of your mind, sometimes you tend to lose control. And that was responsible for my using that word. I have withdrawn that. Anyway, now, the PDP government, like I said, I'm saying this, without, hesitation, that what I said about the commissioners contributing money, everybody knows. What I said about the dearth of infrastructure is well known. He built bridges. There may be some little,
We also heard that he donated his 3-month salary, to fight COVID-19.
How much is his salary, for God's sake? How much is his salary? If the governor donates, let us assume he earns 10 million in a month. In 3 months, it is 30 million. How much does this Adamawa state government spends 50 million naira to feed 39 boarding secondary schools. 50 million naira in a month. The official budget is 30 naira per student per meal. Can you feed a kitten with 30 naira? In a day, a boarding student is fed with 90 naira, less than 100 naira. Can you find bread of 100 naira in Nigeria? Let us face this reality. These are children of the people. These are people's children. When we were in school, the best meals are found in our schools, not in restaurants. And someone is here feeding our children with less than 100 naira in a day. And don't forget, there are also exchange schools in Adamawa State. And the agreement is that all exchange schools are supposed to be maintained by the state government. Imagine a chap from Sokoto, from River State, from Lagos, coming to Adamawa to read under the banners of the state government, and is fed with 90 naira in a day. Okay. If it is your child, would you let that happen?
Okay, certainly. I mean, we always say that systems are always evolving, and perhaps there's no perfect system. But again, there are certain projects that should be reckoned with, when you're talking about the PDP government in Adamawa State. For instance, there's this construction of 2,000 housing units in Maikohi and other, local government areas in the state. You don't consider that as commendable?
Well, has he commissioned the houses? It's still on the table. He has borrowed 100 billion naira for agro-based projects. And what he said, or what his government said, is that this amount will be compartmented into 4. So each year he takes 25 billion. What kind of logic is this? Why would a governor take a loan of 100 billion for a project he knows is dear in the heart of his people, and accept such lofty terms?
Well,
why wouldn't he get a place? I'm coming.
The issue of borrowing.
Yes.
The issue of borrowing is a national issue, isn't it? Even the APC at the national
borrowing. I'm not against
level.
Borrowing.
Yes.
I am saying you have a serious project. You have 4 years guaranteed to lead the state. Only 4 years. Now, you have structured a loan facility in your second year for 100 billion to be paid 25 to be given. He's supposed to be given 25 billion every year. And he has only 2 years to go. Another government can come and say, I am not interested in that. All these are burdens. The project has started, it has not ended. The money has been thrown out. What if the next government feels that is not a priority for them? So it's a waste. And why would you do that? If it is, and if he's doing that from his IGR, nobody will raise eyebrows. Just like the constructions of the bridges. If it is from his IGR, nobody will bother about that. Adamawa is one of the least IGR generating states in this country. Less than 1 billion naira in a month. Okay. Now you are borrowing 100 billion. Okay. When you have barely 2 years to go, who is going to pay that facility? Where from?
All right. Well,
and the projects are not being implemented.
Yes. Let me take you a bit back.
You see, psychologically, even if the intention is good, even if the planning is good, if the implementation is wrong, you have destroyed everything.
Let me take you back a bit, and just before we round up, because time is against us, I want us to talk a bit more about national politics. The APC, at the national level, talking about the convention. A lot of your party stalwarts have talked about consensus in the convention. How do you achieve a convention when, till now, we still have issues that we're dealing with in terms of bringing that, unity in the party?
Well, you see, consensus is just one option that the APC has. And they will exploit other options if consensus is difficult to come by. Don't forget, the president of this country is a military man. He can be a repentant Democrat. His background is in the military. So he's expected to be a tactician. And he is beginning to show that. His countenance is beginning to show that. He's lying low. People expect that he approves things as fast as possible so that, the convention, the alignments and counter alignments will come to pass, and so that they'll be planning. He is taking his time.
But there's no time, isn't it?
No, there is time. There's time.
Is there time? The APC convention is just about 2 weeks
Those whose interest is God feel there's no time. These issues can be solved in 3-4 days. And that's why I said he's a tactician. He is trying as much as possible to ensure that by the time a decision is taken, there will be no time for rancors anymore. People will just have to align and realign behind, those that have been, blessed.
Okay.
This is my thinking. This is my opinion.
True.
My opinion is that he has already made up his mind with his lieutenants. They've come together. They've decided this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. But they allow you, give you the right to play along, meet, exchange ideas, form coalitions, and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, he will tell you this is how it is going to be. And there will be no time for all upheavals and, discontent. People will fall in. And that is what politics is all about.
Okay, can you briefly share your thoughts on the alleged, interference of the president's wife, Aisha Buhari, and, the plot that she wants to bring in her brother to emerge as the Adamawa State Governor, just before we go?
I don't think you call that interference. I don't think it's interference. First, she is the first lady of Nigeria. Second, she is a citizen of Adamawa State. And so her younger brother. They have the right to contest for any office. It is up to the people of Adamawa to either choose or refuse to choose her younger brother. So as a human being, as a citizen of this country, they have all the rights in the world to aspire to be anything. She can decide after her brother's, I mean her husband's tenure, to contest for the presidency of this country. We've seen women come out. Are you saying because she was the wife of the president, she cannot? We've seen George Bush Sr. as president. His son came back as president.
Yes, but I mean, everyone has the right. I mean, everyone has the right.
So
but
interference,
we know that there are calculations. You know, it's time people decide to throw their heart in the ring.
I am not Aisha Buhari. I am not her younger brother, and I am also a gubernatorial aspirant. That means I am prepared to face them in the battlefield. But I'm saying, without mincing words here, that they have the right to aspire to whatever level of politicking they're interested in. So I don't see that as interference. More so, who decides who becomes the governor of Adamawa State? We have a political party as strong as the APC in government in Adamawa State. So, you know, anointing a candidate from here doesn't necessarily give a chance for APC to take over power. But if APC picks a popular candidate, a man who can force PDP out because he has the following, he has the ears of the common man, then we are home and good.
Now, finally, rounding up, question: how do you see this convention of the APC impacting on the 2023 general elections? The conversations and calculations about zoning and the rest of them. How is it going to have an impact on the coming election, 2023?
It is common sense. Like I said, the wranglings are going on. The alignments and counter-alignments are going on. And at the end of the day, they will come out one and speak with one voice. And believe you me, APC will make inroads in this country. APC will not only retain federal government, it will not only retain its 20 or 21 state governments. We will chip in more into some PDP states. We are hoping to form a very beautiful government in this country.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on the program. We do appreciate you. We look forward to having you on Daybreak.
Thank you very much. It's
yes.
a pleasure.
Well, we've been speaking with Dr. Umar Mustafa Madawaki, who is an APC chieftain from Adamawa State, talking to us about the coming convention of the APC and, of course, politics in Adamawa State. With that, we've come to the end of the show for today. We look forward to having you join us again on the program. In case you've missed, you can always catch up on our YouTube and also connect with us via our social media platforms. I am Ayuba Ilya.
And I'm Darshan Hussaina Usman. Have a wonderful weekend.